This isn't my full review of the Heaven Official's Blessing English version, just my first impressions of it. My first introduction to Heaven Official's Blessing, or Tiangon Sifu, was through the donghua, and just the cover photo made me ask, is this going to be fruity? And I'm happy to report that it is very, very fruity. I started reading TGCF's English novels this year, mostly because I learned that the donghua had been heavily modified due to Chinese censorship laws, and also because there's details of the story which I feel are better explained by the novels. So, what do I think of the story so far? Well, in some ways, it's a light-hearted read. There's a lot of comic relief and running gags here, such as Xie Lian being a bad cook and Chirong being a crazy potty mouth. Be warned though, the story does get dark. There's gruesome deaths, unburied corpses, self-harm, and other disturbing elements. Let's put it this way, if you can't sit through a zombie movie or a body horror film, you probably won't get through Heaven Official's Blessing. Another thing that I struggle with are the names. It seems that all the characters have at least two names, and the characters have a habit of referring to each other by multiple names in the same scene. While the English books have a handy reference at the back of each volume, I feel it's quite distracting when I have to lift myself out of the middle of the story to flip to the end of the book because someone important's name was mentioned and I was struggling to remember who they were. Speaking of the story, I know that TGCF started as a web novel, but I have no idea if the English version retained the original sequence of the chapters. I've noticed that events in one volume become significant again maybe 2 or 3 volumes later, and given the amount of chaos that ensues throughout the story, plus my fading memory because, I'm old, it makes the story seem hard to follow at times. Also, it's amazing how often a scene quickly escalates into a shouting match or a full-out brawl, with Xie Lian and Hua Chang in the eye of every storm. It really does feel like two-player Untitled Goose Game sometimes. So, should you give the Heaven Official's Blessing novels a hard pass? Of course not. As Coley does things one set of Modon Zushi, they're chaotic and gay, they're trying their best. And perhaps the same can be said of Heaven Official's Blessing. I'm on the sixth of 8 volumes now, and I feel like the plot has really developed and solidified at this point, so I'm going to finish reading the entire series. If nothing else, it's a social commentary on what people are willing to do to preserve or improve their own social status, even if it makes others suffer. More importantly, the story speaks of how you can go on living as long as someone believes in you, even when you no longer believe in yourself. And isn't that a wonderful thought?